The Island's Daughter. The Island's Daughter. Rising tides of change. In the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean, where azure waters meet the boundless sky, lies the island of Makatea. Once known only for its volcanic peaks and vibrant coral reefs, this remote paradise would soon become known for something far more remarkable, a young woman whose vision would transform not just her community, but challenge the very notion of what progress means in our interconnected world. Humble beginnings. Nalani Kekoa was born during a powerful monsoon that locals still recall decades later. The daughter of a fisherman and a weaver, she grew up in a village where electricity was unreliable and running water a luxury reserved for the few government buildings. Yet despite these material limitations, Nalani's childhood was rich with knowledge passed down through generations, navigation by stars, predicting weather patterns from cloud formations, and identifying which plants could heal and which could harm. My grandmother used to say that our people read the ocean like others read books, Nalani would later recall. We understood currents and tides as intimately as our own heartbeats. By 16, Nalani had completed the island's modest schooling, excelling in mathematics and science despite outdated textbooks and limited resources. While her peers celebrated the end of their formal education, Nalani felt a persistent ache, a hunger for knowledge that the island couldn't satisfy. I would climb to the eastern cliffs and watch the sunrise, knowing that somewhere across that water, discoveries were being made, innovations were changing lives, and I was just waiting, she would later write in her journal. The Catalyst. Dr. Emily Nakamura, a Japanese-American geologist from the Pacific Geological Survey, arrived on Makatea during the dry season of 2017. What was intended as a 3-week research expedition to study the island's unique volcanic formations and tectonic activity stretched into months as she discovered something unexpected, not in the rocks, but in a young woman who served as her local guide. Nalani didn't just show me around the island, Dr. Nakamura would later write in her field notes. She explained how the northwestern ridge had shifted 3 meters in her lifetime, how certain areas were prone to landslides during heavy rains, and how the village elders had oral histories of past eruptions that weren't in any of our scientific records. Her observations were more valuable than most of the data I collected. The turning point came during a severe earthquake that struck without warning. While tourists and visiting researchers panicked, Nalani calmly led everyone to safety, having recognized the precursor signs that her grandmother had taught her, the unusual behavior of frigate birds and subtle changes in tide patterns that preceded seismic activity. Impressed by Nalani's innate intelligence and observational skills, Dr. Nakamura made an impulsive decision before leaving the island. She gifted Nalani her backup laptop, a seemingly simple gesture that would alter the trajectory of not just one life, but an entire community. I've seen students with full scholarships and access to the world's best universities who don't have half your insight, Dr. Nakamura told her. This is just a tool. What you do with it is up to you. Digital awakening. Nalani's introduction to the digital world was both overwhelming and exhilarating. With sporadic internet access available at the community center, she taught herself computer basics through trial and error, often staying until the generator shut down at midnight. The laptop became her window to a world previously glimpsed only through outdated textbooks and occasional tourist stories. She discovered open-source educational platforms like MIT OpenCourseWare and Khan Academy, downloading content during precious hours of connectivity to study offline during power outages. Some nights I would stay up until dawn, the glow of the screen illuminating my small room as I moved between courses in civil engineering, hydrology, sustainable architecture, and renewable energy, Nalani later described. I was consuming knowledge like a person starved. What began as general curiosity quickly developed into focused purpose. Nalani wasn't learning for learning's sake, she was searching for solutions to Makatea's most pressing problems. From theory to practice. The first test of Nalani's newfound knowledge came during a particularly severe drought. The island's antiquated water collection system had failed, leaving the community dependent on expensive imported bottled water. After studying rainwater harvesting techniques from areas with similar climate patterns, Nalani designed a simple but effective collection system using locally available materials. She convinced her father and uncles to help implement her design on their family home as a prototype. Everyone thought I was crazy, Nalani remembered. My uncles humored me because they loved me, not because they believed it would work. When the rains finally returned, the Kekoa household collected enough clean water to sustain not just their family but several neighbors as well. What began as skepticism transformed into cautious interest as other families requested Nalani's help in implementing similar systems. This initial success gave Nalani the confidence to tackle larger challenges. She studied architectural techniques from earthquake-prone regions around the world, combining this modern knowledge with traditional island building wisdom that had been largely abandoned for imported concrete structures that had proven dangerous during seismic events. Working with local carpenters, she demonstrated how bamboo reinforcement techniques and strategic building orientation could create structures more resilient to both earthquakes and tropical storms. Her hybrid approach, respectful of tradition while embracing innovation, began to win over even the most conservative elders. Resistance and revelation. Not everyone welcomed Nalani's initiatives. The island's small governing council, dominated by older men who had long served as gatekeepers of progress, viewed her work with suspicion. They see technology as a threat to our way of life, Nalani confided to Dr. Nakamura during one of their infrequent video calls. They don't understand that we can preserve who we are while still improving how we live. The council's resistance intensified when Nalani proposed a more ambitious project, a community-wide solar power grid that would reduce dependence on expensive imported diesel for the island's generators. The project required a significant initial investment and technical expertise beyond what was available locally. The turning point came unexpectedly during a regional conference on climate resilience in Pacific Island nations. Dr. Nakamura had nominated Nalani to represent Makatea, covering her travel expenses personally. Standing before officials from across the Pacific, this young woman from a forgotten island spoke not of victimhood but of vision. She presented a comprehensive plan for Makatea's sustainable development that honored cultural heritage while embracing appropriate technology. Her presentation included detailed designs for hurricane-resistant housing, water purification systems utilizing local volcanic materials, and renewable energy implementation tailored to the island's unique geography. "We don't need to choose between our traditions and technology," she told the stunned audience. "We need to be selective about which technologies serve our values and our needs. This isn't about catching up with the world, it's about creating our own model of progress." The presentation earned Nalani not just applause but concrete support. A coalition of environmental NGOs and sustainable development funds offered grants and technical assistance to implement her vision, on one condition: the projects must be community-led and approved. Homecoming. Nalani returned to Makatea not as a conquering hero but as a daughter with difficult questions for her community. What kind of future did they want? What traditions were essential to preserve, and what changes were they willing to embrace? She organized village meetings, not to dictate solutions but to facilitate conversations that had never occurred before. Elders shared wisdom about sustainable fishing practices and weather prediction that predated modern science. Young people expressed frustration at limited opportunities and dreams of connectivity with the wider world. "I realized then that my role wasn't to be the island's savior," Nalani later reflected. "It was to be a bridge between generations, between traditional knowledge and modern innovation, between our community and the global resources that could serve us." The breakthrough came when Councilman Tavita, her most vocal critic, publicly changed his position after witnessing how Nalani's water filtration system had improved his granddaughter's chronic health issues. "I was afraid of losing what makes us who we are," he admitted during a community gathering. But Nalani has shown us that we can move forward without leaving ourselves behind. The Makatea model. Over the next 5 years, Makatea underwent a transformation that defied conventional development narratives. Rather than wholesale modernization, the island embraced what became known as intentional innovation, carefully selected technologies and practices that enhanced resilience and prosperity while reinforcing cultural values. Solar panels and small-scale wind turbines now provide reliable electricity, but with an intentional community decision to maintain digital sunset hours, where power is directed only to essential services, preserving the tradition of evening storytelling and community gatherings. Modern communication infrastructure connects the island to global knowledge networks, but internet access in schools is curated through locally developed filters that prioritize educational content and cultural preservation. Traditional thatched roofs have been reinforced with lightweight, recycled materials that maintain their distinctive appearance while providing better protection against increasingly severe storms. Community buildings incorporate passive cooling designs that eliminate the need for energy-intensive air conditioning despite rising temperatures. Perhaps most significantly, Makatea has become a living laboratory for climate adaptation. As rising sea levels threaten coastal communities worldwide, the island's innovative water management systems and resilient infrastructure have attracted international attention. What makes the Makatea approach remarkable isn't just the technical solutions, noted a UNESCO report. It's the process of community discernment that precedes any adoption of new technologies. They've created a framework for technological assessment that other communities could adapt to their own cultural contexts. Full circle. 10 years after receiving that first laptop, Nalani found herself standing on the same beach where she had bid farewell to Dr. Nakamura. This time, she was welcoming a group of visiting engineers and community leaders from other Pacific islands who had come to learn from Makatea's experience. As she watched the visitors marvel at the harmonious blend of traditional architecture and modern functionality in the community center, with its living roof of native plants, rainwater collection system, and satellite internet hub, she felt a moment of quiet pride. Her island had not been left behind. Instead, it had charted its own course, one that increasingly looked like the future that other communities might aspire to in a world grappling with climate change and technological disruption. That evening, as solar-powered lights cast a warm glow over the community gathering space, Nalani sat beside her grandmother, whose traditional knowledge had informed so many of the island's innovations. "Did you ever imagine our home would become a place people journey to learn from?" she asked the elder. Her grandmother smiled, her eyes reflecting wisdom passed through generations. The strongest trees bend with the wind but keep their roots deep in the soil. You've helped us remember how to be like those trees. As night fell over Makatea, satellites passed silently overhead, connecting this once isolated community to the global conversation. Yet the stars remained as vivid as they had been for centuries, guiding lights for a people who had found a way to navigate both ancient wisdom and modern knowledge. A people who refused to be left behind, but insisted on defining for themselves what it meant to move forward. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe for more. And don't forget those post notifications for the next Hood Tales installment.